Hi, beautiful souls. So I wanted to discuss something different today, share some of my experience. So the tagline, I have a couple actually. The tagline I got here is Transcending Family Karma Through Facing Family Drama. Now, I know as a light worker and as someone who is very self-aware of the pain and the drama and the mental chaos that exists in life, you've probably been on the path to healing for some time and working on yourself. And part of what comes with the territory of healing is family drama, family karma. And, a lot of people have everyone has their own perspective about what they've gone through. I'm just going to go ahead and be honest and share my perspective about, without getting too detailed, obviously, about what I've experienced with my family. Now, obviously, I would be considered the black sheep of my family, but I never related to this idea of cutting my family off because that's not the kind of relationship I have with my family. It's multifaceted and it's complex in the sense that, yes, I have very different belief systems, or a belief system that's on a different side of the spectrum of their belief system. I have a very different way of wanting to go about my life. But my family has always been intricately involved in every aspect of my life. They've always been here. In fact, they've been the ones who've helped me the most. And part of that, I think some part of me just knew, even from young, that I was never ever gonna want to cut my family out of my life. Like, there was no reason to. Like, my family has always done so much for me, and they've been supportive in their own ways. The last couple years, this shift that I've been going through has been, honestly, all my life has been painful. I'm like, it's not a couple years. It's like the same cycle, the same story repeating over and over again. And just this past week, these past few days, I've been having a lot of intense, naked truth discussions with friends, with family. And I realized there's a huge lesson that needs to be learned in facing family karma and drama. And some part of me strongly resists this idea of just cutting family off. I know people talk about that, like they say, oh, your parents are narcissistic and blah, 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 cut them off. I would never encourage anyone to do that because unless they're physically hurting you, obviously you might have to social distance from your family, but otherwise, psychologically, they're hurting us. Emotionally, they may be hurting us, but that's the storm. That's the inherent chaotic storm of life. So family is going to be the best spiritual practice you can utilize to grow. So I encourage people to face it because some part of me just always said, face it, sit down. I had to sit down. Growing up, we would have like 2-hour long lectures, and it was full of ego, full of, someone else saying, well, a lot of it saying where someone's like, well, you need to do it this way because I'm right. And those were very painful discussions, but it was part of my lesson I learned early to sit in the chaos. But, some part of me was always resistant and very rebellious internally. I'm like, I'm not going to listen to this. I'm going to ignore this. This doesn't even make sense. Like, I'm not going to listen to what this person has to say. And yet here I am, still having that relationship with my parents. And it just goes to show you, even when you leave home, there's still that internal drama that is continuing on. I think the huge blessing in my life has been that I've been able to maintain proximity with my family, and I've been able to heal this drama without it becoming an illusionary experience because I'm not projecting it onto other people who I'm meeting in my life or other experiences. I'm here dealing with it. So I've never taken my, let's say my daddy or my mommy issues and projected that. Not really, like that maybe when I was younger, but I don't project that stuff onto other people because I'm like, I'm still engaging with my family, so I'm not misconstrued about where the internal drama or the pain is coming from. I know it's coming from this relationship and this dynamic I'm having, so I'm not taking it anywhere else. And I think that's the huge blessing of facing family karma. So many people, they leave home and they're like, well, I'm done with this. And years later, decades later, they're still crying and they're in pain about what happened to them when they were a kid, when they were a child, the childhood trauma that they experienced. And that there's no confusion with me. I'm like, I see it for what it is. Something tells me I have to sit with this. I have to sit in it and heal it in my own way from the inside out. Eckhart Tolle mentions the practice of, being with your family, using Thanksgiving as a spiritual practice, as a way to test that ego. Like, okay, you say you're on a spiritual pathway, but what happens when all of your ego, all of the stuff is brought up to the surface and the unpleasantness is brought to the surface and the pain is brought to the surface? How do you handle it? And a lot of times we get defensive. We get in our ego about things. We're like, well, you're wrong because God told me that. You're wrong because God told me this, and yada, yada, yada. And it's just been a constant disciplinarian thing with the universe where I'm constantly humbled and reminded, you gotta listen. You gotta listen to what they have to say. And sometimes I'm like, okay, maybe you're projecting your issues on, like your family issues onto me, but by the end of the day, like I have a relationship to the people in my life. And they feel, there's a narrative that's playing out. There's a role. We are here to play roles. Let's not get it twisted. You're not here to run away from your role. Part of surrendering is dealing with the family karma and the drama. And running away from it is not going to heal it. It's just going to sustain, and it's going to make you get caught up in the illusion of thinking there's something wrong with everybody else in the world, not realizing that you just didn't take the time to heal it yet. It's not yet healed. So my constant thing growing up is I had to always have those hard discussions. My dad is very militaristic. From the South, he is about that. You sit and you respect and you listen. And that was really hard growing up. But because of that, I can probably handle very challenging discussions. Even I'm someone who wants to hide from confrontation. I don't like confrontation, but I can handle those very hard discussions in person. I'm not just on the internet believing in my magical world without taking accountability for what I'm bringing out into this world. Like I had to sit and I had to listen and I had to take the heat of all of that. And I was challenged to love my family in spite of all of the stuff. Love myself and let my family love me. And I'm like, my goodness, it's been so many years where we're just like constantly cycling through this drama, and I'm like, wow, some part of me, like this past year, I felt like a burden. Now, I really have. Speaking of like shedding the burden, I felt like a burden. Like I felt embarrassed and ashamed of the challenges that have been showing up in my life. Like I don't really want to like discuss it with everyone. I kind of want to just work through it on my own. And that's how I've always pushed through things. I'm like, I just kind of get into my space or my closet and I cried out. I cried into my pillow. I cried behind closed doors because I'm like, well, I don't want to make someone go through this with me. I feel guilty as is with, the challenges that are showing up. And part of me closed myself off to my family in some instances and my friends where I'm like, no, I can't tell you what I'm going through because you're not going to understand. And that was my mistake. Because we're all humans and we're all flawed humans, and almost every single one of us, including the ones you consider to be narcissists, know this. Like every person knows they're a flawed human being. That's why sometimes when we're told it, we get triggered easily because we're already telling ourselves we're failing at life or we're failures. We don't need someone to mirror that to us. We already feel that way. And I realized that was very much a huge part of what was keeping me distant from my parents, is because I'm like, well, you just don't understand. Like, I don't really know how to describe it. And they're like, try us. And so we've had a lot of like honest discussion throughout the like 2024 past couple years throughout my entire life, we've had a lot of honest conversations. I'm like, I've never been to a therapist because we've gone through family therapy together. And I don't know whether my parents know it or not. They're probably, some part of them is actually like they're spiritual therapists for themselves. And that's what they're tuning into naturally. Because all my life, we were always having those very hard discussions. And I realized that I was pushing my parents away because I was like, I feel guilty. I feel ashamed. Some part of me feels ashamed. Some part of me is hiding from this truth. And this is, like, I've told my parents, I'm like, I talk to my guys. This is what I'm being told to do. They know everything. But I didn't realize they wanted to know everything. They're like, we want to know everything. And I know maybe some of you might think your family doesn't want to know that. But I was like, I'm scared. I'm worried. I get anxious. I get overwhelmed. I fight with myself. I pray. Like, sometimes I'm at peace. Sometimes I trust it. Sometimes I don't. And I'm just trying to do the right thing. I'm just trying to follow my heart. Like, I'm not trying to go against your wishes. I'm not trying to disrespect you. Some part of me really cares about what you have to think because you've been there for me. You've been in my life. And I welcome your love, however unconditional to conditional it can be. It's all over the spectrum, let's be honest. I welcome your love in my life and I want it. And they're like, we want your love too. They're like, we want your love too. We want to be a part of your life. We don't want you to be secretive about these things. And I was just like, I don't know. There is not a handbook for this kind of thing where someone tells you, oh yeah, totally, like discuss this with your family. And it's been so confusing. I'm just like, what is it that keeps pulling me back to my family? It's such a strong part of my experience, part of my karma, my journey is like journeying through this energy with my family. Like they're a part of it with me. And after we ended the discussion on love. We ended the discussion on love. I was like, some part of me was like, I'm ready to go. Like, we need to talk today. Let's do it. I'm here. I have the energy for this. And, we put it all out there. There was some screaming. There was probably lots of ego. And then we ended it on love. We ended it with hugs. Because we're just like, you know what? Why are we fighting? Even my dad was like, why are we fighting? So yeah, I'm very lucky. I'm very fortunate in that sense. But you have to understand, like, I've been working through this with my family since I was a kid. And I felt that spiritual responsibility to my family. And it's been confusing to navigate because feeling like a starseed, or an old soul or an earth angel, you're just like, how do I navigate this 3D world and this role I'm playing where I'm the daughter to, this beautiful couple, and yet I do feel strongly I have these obligations to fulfill this, to be my authentic self, to follow my spiritual path, and to do it in a way that's unorthodox. How do I navigate this? And I'm learning you just navigate it with honesty. Raw, naked truth and honesty. Some of you have family members who just need to hear that. They need to hear what you're going through. They need to hear the honesty without the defensiveness, without the walls up, without the aggression, without the ego. Like, I'm like, sometimes it's hard because I'm like, I'm going to cry. Like, I just want to cry. And I just let myself do it. Like, I just let myself cry. I just let myself be vulnerable because I'm like, like, I don't want to be the villain in this story. I'm not trying to be the villain in this story. I'm not trying to paint you or anyone else as a villain in this story. Like, I just want to be honest. So we had that discussion, we put it all out, and it ended with love. And sometimes it's just so hard to know that when you're on this journey. You're just like, I feel so different. I feel like no one will understand me. But you feeling like no one will understand you is you hiding. You have to be fully raw, naked truth and honest with everyone. With everyone. Just say it. This is what I'm doing. Some part of their soul, their spirit knows what you're going through. Some part of their spirit, their soul is in them, smiling, whatever, a part of them, around them. It's smiling at you because it knows what you're going through. And people need us to drop our shields, drop down our defensive mechanisms here so that they can come in. Because by the end of the day, we're all connected and we all just want to experience love from one another. And part of that is like the fear of you have to drop those shields because you're afraid of getting hurt. But it's that very shield that's preventing you from feeling the love that you deserve, from feeling the love and support that wants to come your way. I've had so many people this year, like my sister, I tell you guys about it all the time on this channel. Like, she's been supportive from the get-go, but my sister and me, we tell each other everything. It's always been that way. And so I don't feel like judging her. I know so much of what she's gone through in life that when she talks about the so-called mistakes she's made in life, I don't judge her. I love her more for it. I love it that she's so open and vulnerable. And I didn't realize, like, every person we come face to face with needs to see that and needs to feel that. Because if you're defensive, they mirror you. They tend to mirror you and put up their shields too. And this is a constant dance that we're playing. And the best dance you're going to dance it with is going to be with your family who you grew up with. That's the best dance. If it's your spouse, your children, you got to dance that dance with them. You might be surprised. I had a discussion just a few days later. I saw some friends and they were like, yeah, this is what I'm going through in my life. And I'm like, I've been friends with these phenomenal women since I was in high school. We've been friends since high school. And we never hide. When we're together, we don't hide anything. Nothing. It's just like, there's just like this orb of safety and vulnerability around each other. We're all very like, yeah, this is what's going on in my life. It sucks. And and I've always loved that because we don't need to hide anything. And it feels so healing. These hard discussions, even if there's some venting involved and some ego that comes up, it's so needed. Oh my God, we need to have these discussions. This is the path to healing. It's moving through that war within us, the anger. We have to face it. We have to move through it. And sometimes, yeah, there's going to be some angry words that come out. But, behind anger, there's always vulnerability. And, there's always all of this, I think, spiel that maybe even I get caught up in. Where it's like, oh, don't worry about it. Just let it go. Sit through it. I'm like, sometimes you got to go to war. And war is like war with your heart. Like, you got it's like the antithesis of war, right? But you got to like put your heart where your mouth is. I don't think that's a saying at all. You got to put your heart front and center, and you got to let that guide you and move through the anger and find a way to get to your heart, find a way to get to your emotions, your vulnerability. So that's what I wanted to tell you guys today is have those difficult discussions. Understand and recognize when you're being defensive. We all do it. When you're trying to protect yourself, but it's actually just blocking the love from coming in. Let your family love you. Let them love you. We don't think about that sometimes. We're like, well, I'm just going to separate from the drama. But when you create that separation, that schism, it creates all of this distance and these obstacles in the way of this person wanting to give love to you. And a lot of the times, that's the thing about those karmic relationships, is like those people truly want to love you. It's just that they have fear that's keeping them. The fear is keeping them from fully loving you the way that they want to. So, it's your call. Obviously, look at your relationships, observe them, and read, like, intuitively feel into yourself what you feel like is right for how you're being called to address it. I was like, I don't got nothing to hide. Like, I'm at this point where sometimes I don't realize I'm trying to maintain something or maintain a facade or an image. And part of it is because sometimes I feel guilty, like, for being sad or being depressed or going through my stuff, I'm like, I don't want to burden anyone and be an inconvenience. I told my friend straight up, I don't like being an inconvenience to people. And she's like, I have that same problem too. But she's like, I feel love when you talk to me. Like, I feel love when you're honest with me and when you're holding back. And I have this thing where it's like, I don't know, maybe everyone around me is psychic because people are always just calling me to the table all the time. They're just like, man, give it to me. Like, be honest. That's always been the relationships in my life. And I'm like, okay, are you sure you can handle this? Yeah, they can. They can handle it all. Like this, I don't know what's going on with the 3D, 5D, but I know from my personal experience, there's group healing that's happening here. I'm participating, I'm activating group healing. I think the universe is activating group healing in all of us, but wherever I'm at, it's impacting the people in my life. It's impacting their life. And, even with my friends, they also have things they're going through. And I'm like, that's the same stuff. Where you want to make your parents proud. And then sometimes you rebel against your parents. You're like, I'm cutting them off. But then you end up becoming the very person that your parent wanted to be because you're trying to prove them wrong. But really you're just trying to prove yourself right. And by proving yourself right, you're just trying to prove yourself to your parents, usually. And it's been a very difficult experience because I'm like, okay, I'm not trying to prove myself. I'm not trying to do what everyone else is telling me to do or people suggesting that I do. I'm doing what I feel is right in my heart. But I didn't realize part of the experience to that pathway is that we have to be like very raw and honest with everyone about what's happening. I'm like, oh, you really want to know this. You really want to know this. And, my parents always thought I'm smart. They're like, you're the smartest person in this family. So sometimes when you say things, like, it just makes them reflect and think deeply about things. And I'm like, okay, that's good. But sometimes, like, going through this experience, through this journey and this healing journey, my spiritual journey, I just think, it's separate. It's not separate. And I think that's the thing we really need to, when you're healing, you start to see that, like, your life isn't separate. There's not like a wall up where it's like, okay, starseeds go, other people who aren't evolving don't go. It's like you're healing and you're rising and you're ascending, and it's influencing all those to rise up to their level. They'll be rising up. Maybe you're rising into the God consciousness, and they're not exactly rising into the God consciousness, but they're rising up into a higher state of consciousness. So it's so crazy. Just back-to-back discussions all week with friends and family about what's going on. And then as I was being honest with people just started sending me so much love and support. And I keep thinking I have to go through this alone. And my guides keep telling me, they're like, you're not alone. And I didn't realize they meant, like, even with the people who are experiencing different realities, we're in this together. So yeah, I don't know. Like, I think the bottom line of this is to really pay attention to what's going on in your life, to understand that difficulty is a rite of passage. It's a blessing. Family drama and karma is a blessing. It's your lesson to learn. Cutting your heart off, cutting yourself off from people never feels good. It never feels good. So pay attention, take accountability for when you're doing yourself and someone else a disservice, when you're not being fully honest about what it is you're going through. And yeah. I like to come on this channel and I like to spread positivity and love because I know we all going through it. I know I also like to hold you guys up into believing in yourself too. I'm like, step up, believe in yourself. But sometimes it's like, yeah, we need to cry. We need to cry, and it is hard. But usually it's hard because you're holding on to something, some sort of shame of some sort that you have to work through. And I was like, wow, I do feel so much more free now that everybody knows everything. And they're all like, we support you anyways. And I'm like, okay. So that's why part of me also, I never really cared for those videos where people are like, no one's going to understand you. And I'm like, that's not true. That's never been my experience. But I used to think, some people are never going to understand you. But you know what? Life will surprise you. Sometimes we're making those assumptions. I put that assumption on them. I'm like, they won't understand. And boy, did every single one of them prove me wrong. They proved me wrong. They told me, open your mind, my dear, because you're thinking way too small, and you're thinking way too small of us. We are also evolving, open beings who are receptive to the energy and the light as well. We're also amorphous. We're also changing, and we're also shapeshifters too. And I believe that. Like, I believe in the energy of the people. I feel like everyone you encounter on the street has something they can teach you. But more and more, that illusion for me is crumbling away of thinking that I'm on this journey separate from anyone or anything else. I'm like, oh my goodness, this journey is inclusive of everyone and everything. Otherwise, I'm missing it. I'm missing the whole complete vision of what the universe has for my life. So never think you're alone. You're absolutely 1000% not alone. And you have to challenge yourself to see that every time. If you're crying alone by yourself, look to your friends, the friends who you have in your life, or the family you have in your life, and tell them what's going on. Liberate yourself. And it's cool, you can come online, you can come on YouTube, share your story, that's cool. But I've felt the most liberation from telling people in my life who I'm like, I don't know if you're ready for this. I felt the most liberated by telling them. So we all have our personal experiences, our personal battles internally that we have to face. I think I had a weird dream about that. Was I fighting someone? I don't know. Something was going on. It was a weird dream. Like, I was trying to, in a dream, I had a dream where I was like almost like playing like a video game. I had to like prepare for something, like a music thing. And I was trying to get the right tools and plugs together. Yeah, I don't know. Just face it. Face it. Don't be afraid of it. I really absolutely 1000% believe in facing family karma because it has healed me, guys. How do you think, like I've been asked before, how do you know so much? I'm like, because I think some part of me just doesn't run away. Like, I don't like confrontation. I don't like drama, but some part of me just intuitively knows this is my battle. And I know what lessons like the universe keeps placing on my life, and I keep just like walking straight into it. I'm like, this is my battle. This is my lesson. I don't run away from that. I face them. I try to the best of my ability. And it's that willingness to face it head on that has built up my inner courage, my spirit, and my faith. Hey guys, so I'm back. I forgot to mention in my previous video, I'm about to shoot a channel message video, but I forgot to mention that I had a friend who felt a lot of resentment toward her mother because after her older brother had graduated, he got a MacBook. After her younger brother graduated, he also got a MacBook, graduated from high school, and a car as well. When she graduated high school, she got $100, and she was holding on to that for so long, and she finally had a discussion with her mom about it years later after graduation, and her mom was like, oh, I just helped them out more because you're so independent. I didn't know that that's what you needed from me, or, you needed, I never even thought you would even want it or care for that. And she's like, yeah, that hurt me. And so soon later, her mom bought her a refurbished, expansive camera that she always wanted because she's into photography. So having those honest discussions is so important for you to experience your healing, that honesty. And sometimes part of that is just telling people you're hurt. It's not about pretending the drama of you being hurt doesn't exist. Sometimes it's just saying, I felt hurt. Even if it's a drama, a Shakespearean play, I did feel hurt. That did cause some sort of pain and reaction, pain inside of me. And I'm just letting you know. That's what caused a rift in our relationship. The maturity it takes to have those discussions is what's going to help to free you. Mature into yourself, have those discussions, and you'll find yourself so much more liberated. Now let me move on to the channeled message. Best of luck. Love you guys all. Bye.
The heart knows. The heart knows what it wants. Darkness away. I see clearly now. 'Cause I